Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on our webinar. Today's webinar has been brought to you by AIASF and Design Everest. The webinar will be on top 10 business practices of successful architects. And so with that said, I will just jump on to give you a little highlight of what the webinar will be about. First, of course, we'll have an introduction by AIASF. They'll tell us a little bit more about the organization and what they do. Next, we'll be having a similar insights on Design Everest and what they are about. And then, of course, we'll jump on to the main webinar, which should be about 45 minutes, after which there'll be a quick question and answer, provided there is enough time at the end of the webinar to permit that. So with that said, I will jump on to first introduce to you Carson Maruca. He's the Manager of Member Programs at AIASF. And Carson, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Samir. Hello, everybody. As Samir said, I'm Carson Maruca, and I'm the Member Programs Manager here at AIASF. The American Institute of Architects is a professional organization for architects with a national office headquartered in DC. The AIA offers education, government advocacy, and public outreach to support and promote the architecture profession. There are over 200 chapters nationwide, and here in California there are over 20 chapters in the state. AIA San Francisco is one of the country's largest chapters. We represent over 2,300 members practicing architecture, as well as 4,000 allied community professionals here in San Francisco and Marin counties. AIASF has served the Bay Area for over a century and strives to improve the quality of life in the Bay Area by promoting the value of architecture and good design. Every month, AIASF offers professional development and networking opportunities, as well as public forums, tours, lectures, and gallery exhibitions that provide architects as well as design enthusiasts with many opportunities to explore the local built environment. Our annual Architecture in the City Festival celebrates the richness and diversity of our local design community with programs throughout the city every September. And in addition, our popular San Francisco Living Home Tours program offers participants an inside look at cutting-edge residential architecture. If you have any interest in becoming involved with AISF, please feel free to reach out to me after this webinar. And back to you, Samir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carson. So the next introduction will be by Akash Prasad. He's the CEO of Design Everest, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about the organization. Akash?
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Samir. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. Just a little bit about Design Everest. So Design Everest is the leading provider of engineering services for residential and light commercial construction in California. We started in 2005, and over the last 12 years, we've grown to provide a full set of structural, civil, Title 24, and CAD drafting support services to California architects, general contractors, and homeowners. We originally started Design Everest because we wanted to bring the benefits and service and quality of a larger company to the 99% of the industry, by which I mean the homeowners, the small businesses, the residential architects, the light commercial architects and builders in the state. Our brand stands for three promises. The first is excellent customer service and responsiveness. The second is quality that's affordable, and the third is scalability. We've taken a lot of pride in providing the best customer service to both you and your clients, and always being responsive over email, phone, and text anytime there's a question or a request for proposal. This obsessive focus on customer service has helped us become the #1 ranked engineering firm in California based on online consumer reviews. Our next promise is quality that's affordable. Because we've done thousands of projects of all types in the state, we've developed the libraries, templates, best practices, and learnings from these projects to deliver value engineering plans at a cost that is affordable to your client. Finally, we've built our organization, our workflow, our processes, and technology in a way that we can scale with you, both up and down as your volume goes up and down, but also scale horizontally across services. Whether your client needs structural engineering, civil engineering, Title 24, Cal Greens, as-built, or you as an architect need CAD drafting support services to free up your time and be able to take on more projects. Finally, our long-term vision is to really be a one-stop shop for everything that California architects and GCs need, everything that you sub out, like engineering, drafting support, in order to be able to be a platform to help you, support you, and grow your business and provide great service to your clients. Right, I'll hand it off back to Samir.
Thank you very much for that, Akash. Now we'll actually move over to the main feature of our presentation today. We are going to have Roman Curtis. He's an architect at Polygon Design Studios, and he's going to walk us through the top 10 business practices of successful architects. Roman, are you able to start the presentation, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Samir. Hi, everybody. So my name is Roman. I'm a licensed architect in California. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar. So today we're going to talk and try to develop in 10 steps the following aspect of as running a successful architecture design practice means spending a balanced amount of time doing design work and dealing with business essentials like operation, logistics, marketing, and customer services. This webinar is about the best practice adopted by the leading small residential architecture design company in California. So that was the title of this webinar, and of course, as we go through it, I'm gonna talk about 10 points and 10 aspects of it. They're probably going to go each pretty fast, but down the road, what I'd like to say is that once we get questions from people present today, we will eventually take one of those items or two items and make it into a longer webinar. Some need that, some don't, but eventually we'll figure this out afterwards. So next, please. Yeah. Thank you, Samir. Could you go to the number 1, please? I think it's the next one. I'm not seeing it right now. Yeah, so the webinar is going to be separated in 2 aspects. The first one is to be focusing on the core business and how we can improve that, and the other part of the webinar is going to be about how can we grow the business. So in slide number 1, we have established the architectural business basics. So your work environment and your client expectation, and the idea that your work is your brand and that your word is also your brand. So in terms of a work environment, and this I think is pretty true for a small firm that do want to have a presence in the community and be an active company, to have your own office. A lot of people start their business and work from their home office. I think it's okay for some sort of business, but just like for doctors, lawyers, professionals to whom eventually you're going to give a lot of money for their services, it is, I think, essential to have a presence in an office, and you shouldn't be shy to make your office look like what your clients expect your office to look like. Just like when you walk into a doctor's office, you feel like you're at the doctor's. When you walk into the architecture office, it should feel like one. So that is a pretty big aspect of it. It is expensive when you start a business and you work by yourself, or maybe 2 people are involved in the same business. But I got to say, from my personal experience, it's probably the best investment I did when I started my company. I didn't, of course, get the office right away, but as soon as I could, I did. And having this presence actually brought me more jobs than the rent would cost every single month, because contractors like to come to your office. When they come to your office, you can talk with them, you can go through the project, they can see you're a genuine architect, so they will be happy to refer you some of their clients. They'll know that those clients will actually go to a nice office and not, you know, somebody's shed or somebody's bedroom in an apartment. Also, a second aspect is as licensed professionals, again, like lawyers, doctors, architects, and engineers. Can you go back, please, Samir? Yeah, thanks. Our work is really what defines our brand. I mean, there's so much marketing that we can do. Most of the small businesses' work come through word of mouth. You know, it's going to be contractors giving you a reference, a client that was happy for your work, and they're really going to be promoting your brand. They're going to be happy to talk about how they have this great architect that was successful at doing such and such and being responsive and be there for them. And this is something, again, you can try to market it, but people will know very quickly. And this is always, even in the worst relationship with a client, something to never forget is that that client you're talking to today is probably going to be bringing you your next client. Next slide, please. So slide number 2, we're going to see how be knowledgeable about design and constructions. Could you get this, please? Sorry, be knowledgeable about design and construction. There's a few aspects of what we do, and in it we need to train ourselves. We need to understand the impact of our project, and we need to understand the difficulty of solving some of the problem that we are facing. Meaning we're in the build environment, so at the end of the day, what we draw for our clients and customers, somebody is going to have to build it. Sometimes it's as simple as not really thinking through a detail or an application of a material, and it's physically hard to build. That might mean it becomes very expensive. Maybe the client would have liked to know that that would have been the case. And of course, this training, you can get a lot online or by working with other architects, maybe more senior people. But a lot of it you also get just by experience and being more curious and visiting the job site, talking to contractors, asking questions, telling people when you don't know, when you're not sure, doing that little research that will get you the extra yard. It is extremely important to have your client know and understand and feel that you understand the impact of your work on their house. Because a small residential, mostly residential or even small commercial practices, what we do has a direct impact on the person you're talking to. If you're working for a very big firm, servicing a very big company, chances are you're talking with a project manager. They're not going to be directly impacted in their lives with the decision you make. They might get, it might be a bad business decision, but they still have a house where to go to. Where if you design a house that doesn't work, or just something that gets extremely expensive during construction because you didn't understand exactly the impact of what you designed, and suddenly they have to spend $75,000 more to fix it, but they don't have the money, then really it does create a big impact, and it is essential. I mean, it's part of our service of a statement of service. We have, and we should know what we're doing. And then, of course, there's the difficulty of solving problem, and this is probably due to the nature of our work, and it's not, we don't really get the training in college, and we only get the training once you actually start dealing yourself with it, so at a certain amount of senior level, or when you actually work for yourself. And I'm talking about everything we need to deal with because we work in a restricted and regulated environment. Basically, there's the building code, I mean the building department, the planning department, the fire department, the sanitary district. There's all those other stakeholders that at some point will have a say, whether we like it or not, in the direction that the project goes. Sometimes it's meaningless. It's one department says you need to put a small thing, a clean out, a pipe, something that they feel they're right, they have the right to ask you. But really, down the road, all those things always translate into more money spent for your clients. And sometimes if they had known, they would have probably went a different way. Small example. If we put an in-law unit in a house, whether it's attached or detached, means we can pass the sewer line through the existing house, or it cannot go through the existing house. Well, that could be $10,000, $15,000 difference for the homeowner. And maybe if they had known, they would have been okay having that detached structure actually being attached to the house. And of course, finding out down the road, you know, during construction or even during the planning part of the planning department part of the project, makes us look not as knowledgeable as maybe we should have. Next, please. This one is an essential. It's pretty interesting, actually. So number 3, know your real clients. And I put in this case contractors. So contractors are your #1 clients if you're a small residential architect. And contractors' needs during construction need to be your priority, meaning that if your core business is doing residential, most of your clients eventually will come through contractors. And contractors only like one thing. They like plans that they can build easily. They like plans that are clear. They like architects that don't argue with them during construction or nitpick about half an inch here and half an inch there when it doesn't matter. And sometimes it does matter, and we have to, you know, enforce what we're trying to do. But in my case, yes, it is really, really important to never overlook that you have your client, the homeowner, and your other client is the contractor. And every time you develop a good relationship with that contractor, you're guaranteed some level of jobs throughout the years, because they will like to come back to you, because honestly, a lot of architects are not very nice to contractors, or they like to fight with them, they like to show who's the boss, and at the end of the day, they might be missing out on a lot of opportunities to get more work. I would really recommend, and if you feel that if you're young and you don't have much experience and you feel intimidated by contractors spitting out a lot of lingo and words and making sure when he's talking to you that you don't get it, it's okay. I tell them, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand it. Can you show me? And then they're actually really happy to share what they know. And you get to learn a lot. And one thing about what we're doing, and we'll expand on this a little bit further in the webinar, is the means of construction, wood framing, is not very complicated. It is a sort of a blur when you only look at it through a computer screen and you draft lines and you say they're walls. But once you understand how they're built, it's actually not very complicated. And if you understand it enough, or to the level that when you design it or when you talk to it with a contractor, they understand that you know enough about it, you usually get a very positive reaction from them, and they will try to find a solution that works for you as the architect, works for the client financially, and works for them in terms of the contract that they're into at that point. And of course, their needs is your priority during construction. And I would say, even if it's a contractor you don't like, their needs are the priority, because at that point they're under construction, meaning as a business, they've mobilized people, tools, they're not doing a job somewhere else. And every minute, really every minute, every hour, that we don't respond to them, sometimes they just can't do the work. And it's extremely annoying when you run a small business to have one person holding you because they will not get back at you. And as architect, it happens to us with the building department. We place a call, they don't call back for 2 days. We feel entitled to be annoyed with them and impulsive and have a negative feeling about them. Well, all it cost us really was a few minutes and delaying something with the client. You can imagine the contractor being in the field. There's a problem. They're about to pour the foundations. They have a truck. They've ordered the concrete. It's all going to go bad if it's not used today. And if you're not there for them, again, they're never calling you back. And like I'm saying in the title, they're your real clients. If you act with your real clients in a way that they're never going to call you back, you're probably not doing the right thing. So don't befriend them for no reason. They feel it and don't like it, just like anyone else. I like to go sometime on the job site for no reason, just because I'm around, and I tell them I'm not here for any specific reason. I just want to look around, chat with you for 5 minutes, learn something, and I'll be out of here in 7. You don't want to overstay the fact that you got there. They're still working, and they do not like having the architect around. That's a fact. But anyway, keep it in mind. It is quite something once you get to let's say 4 or 5 contractors that you're really happy with, meaning they actually like you and you do like them, and their work is satisfactory and their price is not too outrageous, then you start having a pool of people you can comfortably refer to clients. And as you refer somebody to a client, they'll always remember that it is as yourself. I mean, if it goes wrong, they'll say, my architect referred me a bad contractor. They're not gonna, and they'll tell their friends, don't hire this guy. He only knows shady contractors. So be careful, build that network, and learn as much as you can from it. Next, please. So number 4, know your marketplace. 2 things we're gonna look at for a few minutes is sorry, the right price for your work, and know the average cost of construction. So those 2 things are very different, but they're probably the most information you have to use when you meet clients for the first time. And again, for this, I'm focusing more on residential and small commercial. Big commercial, they're going to have their price list, price table, people involved know the marketplace, and they're going to want to go to nuts and bolts, and it's not their money they're spending. But for the mom and pop, house or business, you need to figure out when you see them for the first time, after you probably talk to them on the phone, maybe they have a reference, maybe they found you online. But at this point, nobody knows really what is going to be the cost of the service. We need to define exactly what they want, and then we need to define the price that we think they're willing to pay. And if that price is not too low compared to the price we're willing to do the work for, then that's the right price. Because there's no price table, maybe a remodel in Denville is going to be more expensive than a remodel in Hayward, and that's probably the case, but then it has to do with the people. It's we really need to feel that what is the fee that this person think is the right fee for the service we're about to offer. And people have different expectations. Sometimes if you lowball too much, they might feel you're not the right person. They might feel you're not competent or confident enough to do the work because there's an expectation that the bill you just, the quote you proposed should have been twice at that. They might be happy that you said half and run with it, but sometimes you might lose just for that. And of course, it happens more the other way around. We propose a price, and you can see the eyes popping open in the people's face. They had no idea that that's what it costs. That it's really expensive to get plans organized and done for your remodel, and that the architect and the designers are just the first people you pay. Then you're going to have other consultants, engineers, maybe an energy consultant, depending on the project, and it is going to cost an enormous amount of money for a regular household to get their remodel just started. Not even counting the actual cost of the permit, which sometimes is almost the same than the design fee. So of course, breaking that down and here, I mean, when I feel people are going to be really off or feel too off with my fee, that's the time that I try to think about, well, is it a job I really want to do? Am I really willing to go as low as they think is the max they can do? And sometimes I'll do that. I'll just say, fine, sorry, I'll just cut the price in half. It's fine. We'll just do it, and we'll make it work. Or sometimes it's a good indicator that this is not the client for you. Somebody will do the work at the price they expect, and it's fine. It might be a lesser quality than what you would have done, but that also gives you the opportunity to go look for another client and maybe get the price that allows you to do the work you think you should be doing. And of course, a question that comes back every single time when you meet clients is they want to know how much it costs. So there is two answers for this, and I really recommend the first answer to be to tell them, I don't know. I'm not going to give you any numbers about how much it costs because I am not a contractor, I'm an architect, and I don't know. And then you need to add that contractor's friend of mine told me not to, because we really don't know what it's going to cost. It's actually not even lying. It would be lying to pretend to know. We don't know, and what we do that's really wrong is we mislead clients by giving a figure, a number of thousands of dollars, 70,000, 250. We try to be nice. We try to, estimate or guesstimate what it could be, and we give a number, and what it does, it sticks in the back of their brain. And when the contractor shows up a few months after we're done, that's the number they have. That's the number they're comfortable with because you told him something, and then maybe you said, oh, it might be a bit less. Anyway, they have a number, and then the contractor comes back with maybe twice that number, and they just freak out, and they should. It was poor information because you didn't know what the actual price was. So what I do tell them, and I phrase it almost like this every single time, I tell them, this is what I tell all of my clients. It's on average so much per square foot that's new, usually around 300 in the Bay Area, or around 100 and up, 200 and up, or 150 and up, depending on the city, the scope of work for interior remodel. And I tell them it's and up because windows can be $1 or $5 for the same windows. Fixtures can be extremely expensive. Finishes are 1, 2, 3-fold. Framing is pretty much very constant. There is no savings there. So meaning that whatever price we give, at the end of the day, it could be much more. And we cannot have the responsibility of telling them it's going to be less than what they might be spending. But what I do tell them is to be comfortable with the numbers I'm telling them, and I try to really push that it is just an idea of how much it would cost. Just like when you walk into an expensive restaurant, you know what the entry is going to cost, $30, $40, but you know you're not going to spend $30 in that restaurant because you're going to have dessert, cocktail, whatever. So it's going to be more expensive, but you have an idea of where you're getting into. You didn't go to Dennis, and you're not expecting to pay $20 for your dinner. it's the same. And that's usually good enough information. And with this, they can map out the money they have available right now, the money they want to refinance, the savings they wish they don't have to tap into. But they can live with the idea that it's going to be around that price. And then with them, we try to make that work by showing them that this solution is more expensive than this one is more efficient, not doing that bathroom will save them money because we're not touching it, versus doing something else. This is the right approach. Again, if you feel tempted to give a price, don't. Unless you're a contractor and you actually know the answer, just don't. If you don't know the answer and you don't know why you know the answer, tell your customers you don't know it. It's a much better answer at the end of the day. Next, please. So one aspect of small business, and we mentioned it in the opening of the webinar, is we basically have to do everything ourselves. We might get help from a spouse, from a friend, from a colleague from college, or an associate, but down the road we don't have office managers, employees, accounting, all that kind of good stuff that makes you able to really focus on your core business all day long. So what you need to learn to do, and it's actually not that easy when you get busy enough, it's so to manage your workload and then to outsource what you can. So to manage your workload, you really got to start thinking about on how you do work, what type of jobs you're taking, how much they can sell for, how much you're going to postpone small tasks that one day are going to become a whole day of work. And of course, a lot of the things might seem very obvious. I mean, they are actually pretty obvious, but like a lot of things we do as small businesses, they're obvious when you say them. They turn out to be not obvious at all when you're trying to achieve them, and how you perform on them, and how you're trying to do it. You only have 8 to 9 hours a day to do all those tasks, and when you have 5 fires you have to work with, 6 angry clients or new customers that just walk in, you need to address those things. And if you're by yourself, that means you're pushing something out of the way that's just not getting done, and it gets on the pile of the to-do things. So a way to do this is to organize your work and your file on your computer, whichever software you're using, in a way that's extremely redundant, meaning everything is named exactly the same way. Folders all look alike. If you have a job folder, there is one folder in it that says pictures, one that says received, sent, print ready, or final file, and you always know that's where you put stuff. That way you never have to think about it. When you open a folder, if you don't have a picture folder, you don't have pictures. That's the answer. If you don't have something in your sent folder, you never sent anything. And you just do this. You force this routine on yourself. It's a little bit hard at first because it feels like more work, and it's easy not to do it. But on the long run, 6 months down the road, when you've done it properly, and you're closing on a couple of projects and signing up a few more, and you get a few in building department and or under construction, going back to that file or that folder with all those subfolders and files that are named properly, just by looking at it, it tells you where you're at. A simple thing that actually I learned this one when I was working with a bigger firm. We have folders called sent and received. You send a document to a client. You can use your email, but sometimes it's like a quote or something substantial enough that it needs to be recorded as that's the state of the document when we send it. So in the sent folder, we would say, put the date on a new folder, call it sent. That's how we, sent, the date, and then a dash, and then a word, maybe a name, Bob, Bill, or an action, or a place, building department, BD comments. That means when you look at all your folders and you look into them, instead of having like an enormous amount of files that nobody knows really what's in it, you actually you're looking at your files like they were sentences that tell you something, and then you can click on that folder and there's whatever document linked to that thing, that action, or that moment in time that was important for your project. And you do this for every single project, every single time. And most of the folders stay empty, but that it also means when you click on it, 6 months after, nothing happened. That's a better piece of information than wondering what happened. Also, file naming, just the CAD file or the Revit file or whichever software you're actually using. When we communicate between engineers and architects, or between architects, we get a lot of always client files that are called something. It's whatever that person thought a file should be called that day. Somebody's name, somebody's address. Don't do that. Make it job number, address, that's it, and you're consistent with this. And then they add a date because they send a file that day. Hey, it's the file of that date, or the project is finished, so we see a lot final. And then, well, there's one more comment, so no, the file is not final, and then send the file again. It's called final, 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 final. And it doesn't make any sense. And what it does, you're cluttering your work with information that's useless. The proper way to do it is to mimic the way architects used to work while I was in college. Basically, before CAD was well spread. They would have a vellum in the office, in a drawer, a flat drawer. That would be the reference set. The client wants a copy, you take the vellum out, you make a copy, you put it in the mailbox, that print goes away, the blueprint that was printed by the interns in the basement, that's sent out. And then that's it. You're just sending out the state of your work at a certain date. You're not sending the vellum and making a copy of it. It should be the same with your CAD file or your working file. If that's whatever, you delete what's not part of what you want to send, and you send it, but you don't rename it. It's a state, and you put it in a folder where you said, I sent that particular file that day. That's recorded, and then you can move on to something else. If there's an issue on that project, whoever you sent it to said, well, it wasn't what I thought, dimensions were all wrong, at least you know what you sent. It doesn't have a different name, but it's that state of work, and then you're good to go. You can move to something else. Again, those small practices tend to be tedious at first, especially when you're trying to figure out everything, but as soon as you're really doing it well, you actually end up saving an enormous amount of time, and you can start relying on yourself more, like how you archive things and where your information is and how you sort it out in the machine. It makes you feel confident that you will get the right answer the day you get the call about everything went wrong. Next, please. So now we're moving to talking about growing your business. So what are the things we can do as small businesses to grow our businesses? Of course, we don't have Salesforce. We don't have all those things. So the best way and the first thing is to be available and responsive when it matters the most. And it always matters the most when people are in trouble for some reason. Client got comments from the building department. Contractors trying to pour concrete. You're doing a small remodel, something with the fire department, they're not getting their certificate of occupancy. For us, on our side, it's probably a couple of hours of work. It's annoying. We had planned to do something else. Maybe we had planned to go to lunch, or we had planned to work on a project. Anyway, we didn't plan for that. That's why they're called, accidents. But for them, it's an enormous thing. It's the only thing happening that day for them, and maybe for a few days. If you act on it properly, even if it was your fault in the first place, they'll recognize, not everybody is just a mean person trying to blame people. They'll recognize that most people can make mistakes, but it's your ability to fix what you've done wrong or to fix someone else's mistake that they're really, really going to remember. And every time people remember you as a good architect, they're going to be happy to talk about you to their friends when they're having like social gathering. Nobody knows architects, nobody knows lawyers, or sometimes a doctor, but having one of those professionals that nobody knows where you can find them, and knowing one that's actually good and you can vet for them is something people like to do. And you need to keep it in mind. It is part of our work to do that, to be available and responsive when it matters and when it matters the most. And of course, with contractors like before, and with with clients. So it's not, and we don't need to be responsive only when there's a problem. We of course need to be responsive all the time. This is part of why we charge so much. And for the amount we charge, we should be responsive. So whenever we start a project with clients, we work right away. We give them documents back right away. They have something they can chew on. They have something they can share with their friends, with their family. They can take it to the weekend or on vacation and not call you back for 3 months. That's their prerogative. They're the clients. But when they do get back to us, we have to respond in a couple of days. As reasonable as possible, even if it's a small response. Never let emails just pile up and do them on the weekend. It's extremely annoying to sometimes spend a few hours a day stopping your work to respond to this, but it matters to people. If people email you and you're an architect, it's just like when you email your doctor If you're emailing your doctor, it's because you really want to talk to him. You really want to talk to that physician about something that matters to you a lot. If they don't get back to you for 2 days, that's maybe all you're thinking about, or that's something you're just very unhappy about. It's the same for them. They're calling us or emailing us because they don't know something, because they need to know something, and they're paying us to provide this. It could be, what's up with my design, or the billing department said so, how do I deal with this? Just remember, they are not familiar with any of it. Even contractors for which we remodel their house, they have no clue how to do the plans and to get the permit through the process. They think they do, but they actually don't. And clients, some of them act like they do, but they really, really have no clue. And we need to guide them. We need to reassure them. We need to be available when they're stressed about it, and they will always get stressed at some point, at different point in the process. Sometimes at the beginning, sometimes it piles up. Sometimes you realize that they can't make any decision that actually uses any rational information you can provide them. That's the time to tell them to stop, to be confident enough as an architect to say, you should stop your reasoning because your reasoning is not helping you right now. You need to focus back on, I don't know, the dimension of the room or something, the way the room feels like or something, the way you're expressing that you're I would say that you're stressed about it is really jeopardizing the whole project. And I've been saying this to clients that needed to hear it more than once, and they actually, you can see them finally feeling relaxed. Somebody just took that big weight off of their shoulders, you know. That usually translates into looking at pictures of projects of houses twice the size of their house on Pinterest at 2 a.m. trying to figure out what deck would look good in front of their house. And if they're doing this, we need to help them not do that. It doesn't help. It actually makes us work more because now we're working with somebody that's more erratic and cannot express what they want and is basically freaking out, you know. And we need to reassure them. And sometimes it really, again, it means just stepping in and saying, no, stop it with the deck. The deck will be fine. We'll paint it whatever color you want. The deck is not the problem. Right now, the problem is you're thinking about the deck all day long. You got to stop doing that. We got more things to talk about than the deck. And eventually, of course, you're never upset when you share this. You tell them, this is my professional opinion. I think you're overreacting about the deck for some reason. I don't necessarily know completely why, but you should not, because you're grinding yourself down and you're working yourself too much and probably annoying your spouse about it too much. So we need to step back a little bit, focus more on the things that make sense. When do we want to build this? How long is it going to take for the building department? Put some rational into it and go back to designing what they want, because that's actually what they hired us for. Next, please. Oh, sorry, we're already there. No, go back to 6, please. Thanks. So stay involved in the whole construction. That's essential. Well, all of it is pretty important, but be available and responsive when it matters the most. So yes, when sorry. No, sorry. Go back on 7. Yes. So provide excellent customer service. This again was part of what I was talking earlier. Again, this webinar is more oriented for like small firms or 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 people practice, and again, we have to do everything. So we cannot go and fix things by sending the marketing team, be nice and giving coupons. So we need to have an excellent customer service, and that's the only service we need to have. If we need to let go of a client because the client is a really bad one, that might happen once every few years. I think it's okay to do it. It's okay to explain to that client that it's just not working. Most of the AIA contract provide for that anyway, that it's okay to stop the relationship. It's not okay to get to the point where everybody's upset, because then they walk away with an upset architect. But then it's not okay for us to keep on working with somebody that's really just in the way of our own business. But to provide that excellent customer service, we need to be accessible. Again, that has to do with responding to clients for their small needs right away and as most as we can. A good way to be accessible is find a time during the day that works for you, that's maybe a little bit before or a little bit after or just at lunchtime, I mean, before the day or after the day or at lunchtime, when we get less expectation of being working, where we can go through all the small tasks, the small changes. You might get 5 small changes. Do them all first. Don't do the big thing you thought you were going to work on for 6 hours and then get to those 6 little changes, because now what you have is 1 happy customer and 6 angry ones. Do the small 6 things first. They might take half an hour each, 20 minutes. They're all dealt with, or at least communicate on them that you are thinking about it. You will do it tomorrow or at another time, and then do the big one. So now everybody is a little bit late, but nobody's angry, and most of them are actually pretty happy. Also, a way to a way to deal with this is don't be afraid to give a date that gives you more time. Everybody wants this to be a success. You want it to be a success. Your client wants it to be a success. The contractor wants it to be a success. And to make it a success, what really people need to know and want to know is, how is the thing going to unfold? How much time things are going to take? And giving them promises of things they're going to get tomorrow when you know it's not even possible, it doesn't help you. It's better to say you'll get in 3 days and give it in 2 days. Now they remember that they were okay with 3 days. They make peace with the fact that it wasn't today, but you delivered it a day earlier. That's really good. That is, in essence, providing excellent customer service. You delivered the work a little bit ahead of time. You made something that was bad a success. You turned it around, and by actually doing the proper work. Another thing, so the third one, know how and where the dollar is spent during construction. This is really hard to learn, even from webinars or online resource, because it's just the way you learn it is, it's really been in the field. And once you've done a few remodels or additions, and you start understanding really where the money is spent, is sorry, is once you start knowing and learning how things are built, basically getting more familiar with how wood framing works, why things are built the way they are, why a door is the certain height that it is, how it relates to the fact that the wall is that height. Once you start knowing the things and being more intuitive about it, when you first meet with your clients, you will be able to explain where the money goes. And I'm not talking like given a precise dollar amount of this costs this. It's saying, well, this costs more money than this. This is a more efficient way to spend your money. And there are some very obvious things, and then the things that are less obvious you learn with experience, but a few obvious things. Doors are 6'8" in most height in most houses because walls are 8'8". And if you put a header that's 12-inch 4x12, you're left with all the rough framing, more or less with 6'8". That's why doors are that height. So if you know that and you're comfortable knowing it and explaining why it is, if a client tells you, oh, I'd like to do to put a window that is taller than my door, but you see that the eave is right on top of it, yes, you can design it, but eventually it'll be really expensive to do it because we won't be able to frame it in wood. We'll need to put a metal beam because we won't have the room to pass such a big beam. That was not a very difficult thing to know or learn, but it's really easy to miss. But knowing this and telling the client right up front, saying, well, no, it's going to look like whatever every other houses look because they're all built the same way with the same material. If you want a different look, it's going to cost more. We can't just make it be something that it's not. But again, we can by just spending more money in it. But it's not our money, it's our customers' money or clients' money, and we want to make sure that we don't overspend it. And of course, like I mentioned before, help your clients with their stress level when they need it the most. Next, please. So better monetize your clients. It's a fair thing to say that in architecture, we're never really taught in school. I mean, we really don't have like business classes during school. So we don't really know how to deal with selling our product, selling our services properly. Well, some are really good. I would say the average just is not proficient. And we have to learn to better monetize our client. Of course, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is to charge the price that the client thinks is right without being a crook. I mean, it's not because They think it might be 3 times that's what you would charge. It would just be that expensive architect that maybe did not the best work in the world. But to try to find out really what is that right price that makes them happy and makes you happy. Next one is invest in a big printer. It is, and I put it there, it is very profitable. Your clients, when they print, most likely they're going to print just once. Once, twice in their life in that format. And if they go to Kinko's or FedEx or those type of companies, it will run them $5 to $6 a print. A set now is always, very easily. It gets to be very close to being a 10 sheets. You might have 5 or 6 sets. They might be spending $300. If you got a few building department comments, it might be most of them now want us to reprint the whole set. It might be another $300. Your engineer might send you the print, and anyway, you get the idea. That's a lot of printing. And a printer, although they look very expensive, they're just around $1,000. And once you buy your ink and you have enough room to print, and of course they're not as fast as I would think, then you're making that extra $300 to $600 on a project, and which might just be 10% of your fee in the first place, just for providing a better service than having your client go to Kinko's. What it also does is, if they're ready to give it to a contractor, you can have the contractor come and pick them up at your office. Then you can meet the contractor. You can share aspects of the project that weren't really easy to convey in the plans. So that just, it goes in the right direction. You make a lot of money out of it, especially if you get a lot of work. Oh, and it pays for itself in just a couple of weeks. I mean, if you have enough projects to pay for your rent and make a living, it pays for itself in a week. So, because they probably cost like less than 50 cents a print at the end of the day. And then you get all this benefit of having contractors ask you to print for them. You do it for free, and then they'll come and pick it up in your office. They'll think about you when they have a client. And then try to reach and be at 90% production capacity. This is, of course, easier said than done, especially when everybody's really, really busy. But this is something that people are taught in marketing, in business and in MBAs, in the business administration. You want to have your company at 90% production and capacity or production. There is a reason for that. If you're at 90%, that means you can easily increase your prices because you're at 90%. If you don't get all your new jobs at that new price, fine. You might get less job, but you scored most of them at the new price. You're making the same income, but you get less work to do. That actually works pretty well. Or you decide that your prices are fine and you want to grow the company. Then it's time to think about hiring somebody part-time or finding a way to cooperate on something with someone else. But anyway, if you're over 90% of production, you're not expensive enough. You should be more expensive. Next one, please. Cherish your returning clients. There's a group of clients that we do get as small firms, as developers, people who fix their houses, people who manage like small commercial buildings. Give them half the price you would otherwise to someone else. Give them even better service. They're usually less picky. They're doing this during their day of work, so just it's business as usual for them. So they're not stressed. They're spending money that might be theirs, but it's working money for them. It's their tool. If they're flipping houses, the money is their tool to get things done. So of course they want a good deal, but they're way less work than homeowners. And they're very profitable clients. If you get a lot of those, even at half the price, you probably still have to work less hours than to cater for mom and pop who you have to really hold their hands and answer a lot of questions throughout the day or the weeks because they need that extra time. Those developers, they don't want to hear from you unless you get something to tell them that matters. So they're usually clients that don't call too much, which is great. And they have work. They might do more than one project a year, maybe more than one project a month. If you can get them, they're perfect. Even if you get them at a third of the price, they might just pay all your bills for you. Pay for your office, for your printer, for the part-time person you just hired. You don't make any money out of it, but every other job is your profit. So I like them. I think people should never overlook them. Next, please. And showcase your portfolio. This one, everybody does it. In this high-tech world, everybody does it, since they're a kid. anyway, but it does work. It does work really, 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 really well. It's important to collect your good customer testimonial, not pressuring them, but asking them if they'd be okay to do it. If you're on Yelp or another media, I mean another social media, you will get some traffic. It does. I mean, you're out there with a bunch of people doing it, but you do get some traffic, and it doesn't cost you a lot of time or a lot of money to do it. It's a very small investment that you do once, and then it just once in a while will bring you a job. And of course, try to have an appealing website. But architects are actually really good at that. We're supposedly designers, and most architects' websites are actually really good. Even if we have no jobs, we have a really nice website. So that's pretty obvious. But it's like do it once. I would say don't put too much information on it. People don't necessarily want to see your life story and the 55 pictures of that one project you did. A few examples that people can associate with are usually enough. And if you do or can afford it, have a professional take some pictures. It makes a big difference. And of course, if you're on social media, share your work, share it with your friends. If you're out there, eventually something will come back. And then you can also advertise on social media. Pay that $50, $100 or $20 a month to have your name moved up. It works too. But I mean, if you're doing that, you probably should have something to show for, because then you're investing money, and people might click on it, and it costs you money, and they don't see what they want to see. So you're really that might not be the best way to do it at first. If you have nothing to show, Yelp is probably enough. If you have enough projects and you can organize them in a way that's appealing to most customers, then maybe paying for advertisement will be the good thing. But anyway, I think we're done with those 10 items. There's of course more. I'd like in the future to talk more about the core of what we do, which is understanding really how things are built and to really cater to those client relationship. In the meantime, if you have any questions, or you're welcome to email them. They'll be passed on to me. I think my email might be there. I'm not sure if it's visible, but if not, they will be passed on, and I will respond to every and single one of them. If you have a very specific question that requires a little bit of research, it doesn't take too much time. I will spend an hour and try to give you that information if it's like code specific or a problem you might have with a client and that you would like to understand more. Other than that, what we'd really appreciate is to get a feedback on which items you would like us to develop more. I mean, some of them 5 minutes was probably enough. A lot of them we can go in more details and actually be more precise into what I was trying to convey today, and really go down to the nuts and bolts of what tip or what habit really helps when you're in the office. Other than that, thank you all for being here and listening to being there for the webinar for this past 45 to 50 minutes. I'm going to pass it back to Samir, and I think he will do the conclusion. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for that, Roman. I appreciate all that insight. So we were going to have a question and answer session at this time, but it looks like we're running out of time. If you have questions, I do have the contact information on how you can reach AIASF. It's on your screen right now. You can have Carson's email address there. You can reach him by phone. Of course, their website's there. Design Everest, you can reach Roman out there too. Essentially, just email it to that address or phone number. Thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to you attending our next webinar. We'll send out details of that shortly. Have a great day now. Thank you.